We all think of science as, our bedrock of objective logical truth. But what if the way we actually practice science, the way we train new scientists, and even the way we make huge breakthroughs, has way more in common with religion than we'd probably like to admit? That's the provocative idea from the historian Thomas Kuhn that we're going to dig into today. So yeah, that's the big question right at the heart of this. Is our belief in science running on a completely different operating system than religious faith? Or are they, maybe just different apps on the same hardware? Let's find out. To really get our heads around this, we have to start with one of Thomas Kuhn's biggest and most powerful ideas, the concept of a paradigm. So what is a paradigm? Well, think of it like the rulebook for a specific scientific game. It's the whole collection of assumptions, theories, and methods that everyone in a particular field just agrees on. It basically sets the stage and tells you how to play. Kuhn had this brilliant analogy for what most scientists do day in and day out. He called it normal science, and he compared it to doing a jigsaw puzzle. See, the entire scientific community has already agreed on what the picture on the box is supposed to look like. The job of the scientist isn't to challenge that picture, it's to get really, really good at figuring out how the individual pieces fit into that big, agreed-upon framework. And right here is where science takes a sharp turn away from something like philosophy. Philosophers are always questioning the very foundations, right? What is truth? What is reality? But a mature science, one working inside a paradigm, kind of stops asking those huge questions. It just accepts the framework and gets down to the business of solving puzzles. And you know what? That incredible focus is exactly what makes it so powerful and so efficient. Okay, but how do you get people to be that focused and efficient? Well, this brings us to a pretty controversial question about how we educate scientists. Is it really education, or is it closer to indoctrination? Think about it like this. If you study the humanities, you're expected to read the original words of Plato or Kant. You're taught to poke holes in their arguments, to debate the core ideas. But in science, it's a totally different story. Students almost never read Newton's original work. Instead, they get these modern textbooks that present the current theories as settled fact, and the main thing they do is solve problem after problem where the answer is already known. So if you look at it from one angle, this type of training isn't really about fostering broad, open-minded thinking. The goal seems to be to forcibly fit a specific lens on the student, to get them to see the world through the current paradigm. And when you put it that way, it doesn't sound all that different from how a theology student learns to see the world through the lens of a sacred text. So, is it just blind faith? Is it a kind of indoctrination? Well, not so fast. There's a really powerful counter-argument here, that the seemingly dogmatic approach is actually a crucial strategic tool for science. To get this, you have to check out this classic psychology experiment. Researchers showed people playing cards, but they tweaked some of them, like making a spade red instead of black. When people saw it for just a split second, their brain would fix it. They'd report seeing a normal black spade or a red heart. But when they got to look at it a little longer, they'd get this weird feeling that something was off. They knew something was wrong, even if they couldn't say what. And that is the whole point. You have to have a super strong, rigid expectation, like all spades are black, to even notice something that breaks the rule. Without that firm belief, a red spade isn't an anomaly. It's just another card. So from this perspective, scientific dogma isn't a blinder at all. It's actually a high-powered lens, perfectly tuned to spot the tiny, weird exceptions that can lead to massive new discoveries. Okay, but what happens when those tiny exceptions, those little anomalies, start to pile up? What happens when the puzzle pieces just refuse to fit and scientists start questioning the picture on the box itself? Well, that's when you get a scientific revolution. Now here's the crazy part. During a revolution, scientists on opposite sides don't just interpret the world differently. They literally see different things. When Joseph Priestley looked at a flame, he saw a substance he called phlogiston escaping. But when Antoine Lavoisier looked at the exact same flame, he saw oxygen combining with a material. Same event, two totally different realities. And this brings us to another one of Kuhn's head-spinning ideas, incommensurability. I know, it's a mouthful, but the concept is actually pretty simple. It just means that the two competing paradigms are speaking such different languages that they can't even have a proper debate. They don't agree on the rules, they don't agree on what counts as proof, there's no neutral territory to stand on and judge which one is better. You know what it's like? It's like the never-ending Mac versus PC argument. There is no single purely logical argument that will ever convince a die-hard Mac user to switch, or vice versa. They're different ecosystems with different values. At the end of the day, picking one over the other isn't really about proof. It's a kind of leap of faith into the system that just feels right to you. And this leads us to what might be Kuhn's most shocking claim of all. He argued that when an individual scientist finally gives up an old paradigm for a new one, it's usually not because of one single logical proof. It's something that feels more like a conversion experience. All of a sudden, the whole world just clicks into place in a new way. But, and this is a really, really important but, while the choice for one person might feel subjective, like a conversion, the reason the entire community eventually moves over is totally rational. It's because the new paradigm is just better. It solves more puzzles, it explains more things, and it usually does it more elegantly. It just works. So if all this is true, with these revolutions and conversion experiences, it kind of begs the biggest question of all, doesn't it? If science isn't just a straight line of logical steps, what does it even mean for science to progress? This is where Kuhn gets really wild. He suggested that maybe scientific progress works a lot like Darwinian evolution. You see, evolution doesn't have a final goal, right? It's not trying to build the perfect animal. It's just a process of constantly moving away from what's less successful. So maybe science isn't moving towards some single ultimate capital T truth. Maybe it's just relentlessly moving away from theories that are clunky and don't work as well. But on the other hand, I mean, come on, just look at the history of something like physics. You go from Aristotle to Galileo to Newton to Einstein. Are we really going to say that isn't a clear, straight line of progress? Each one of those steps gave us a dramatically more powerful and precise way to understand and control the world around us. Here's another way to think about it. Is a modern smartphone the final, ultimate truth of communication? Probably not. But is it an objective, undeniable, massive improvement over a 19th century telegraph machine? Yeah, of course it is. So in the same way, even if science isn't getting us closer to some cosmic truth, its problem-solving power is absolutely, objectively getting better and better. So where does all of this leave us? The goal here isn't to say science is a religion. No way. It's to help us see science as something much more interesting than just a cold, logical machine. When you really look under the hood, science isn't some sterile, mechanical process. It's a rich, dynamic, and profoundly human thing. It's this messy, amazing mix of rigorous logic and wild creative leaps, of deep personal commitment and the power of group agreement. All of it fueled by this incredibly focused, relentless drive to just solve the puzzle. So I'm going to leave you with this final question to chew on. Is science a perfect mirror, reflecting reality exactly as it is? Or is it something even more incredible? The most sophisticated, powerful, and successful belief system that we humans have ever created. How you answer that, well, that kind of changes everything. Thanks for watching.